So we're going to create another SentenceBuilders resource. We're logged in, so we go to Resources and click on Create New Resource. And that takes us to the authoring page for creating your own SentenceBuilder resources. We're going to start again from a column-based resource in French. This SentenceBuilder consists of 4 columns. On the left-hand side we've got likes and dislikes, and then we have a list of school subjects, and then we have because, and then we have a list of reasons. Okay, I've put our content into our SentenceBuilder as columns, and I've added the translations. So we have I love, I like a lot, I like, I hate, etc. As I've explained elsewhere, it's fairly easy for a student to build sentences using this kind of table, because they can work out which chunks of language can go together and which chunks can't. So for example, they know that if they start with I love, the reason that they're going to give for loving whatever subject it is going to be a positive one. So you're not going to end up with students making sentences such as I love French because it's boring. And also, as I've explained elsewhere, that's not the case when we're dealing with a computer program. The computer program doesn't understand any of the language and doesn't know which pieces of language can go with other pieces of language. It presumes that if they're put together in a column like this, that all combinations are possible and viable. Now, it would be possible to use word-based exclusions to say that, for example, that you can't combine things like I love with boring or tiring or rubbish and so on. But that's quite complicated to do, and you won't end up with the best and most efficient resource if you do it that way. And also you'll have to do a lot of testing to make sure that the exclusions that you put in place are working the way that you'd like them to. So what we're going to do instead is to restructure the table. The first thing I want to do in terms of restructuring the table is to divide the likes and dislikes into positives and negatives. So we'll split the left-hand column into 2 by selecting the column and splitting it, and then I'll copy the negatives and move them into the cell below. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the opinions at the end. So let's take C'est difficile onwards and copy that out and put it into a separate cell. So now we have our positive opinions at the top, positive likes and dislikes at the top, our negatives at the bottom, and on the right hand side there we have our positive reasons at the top and our negative reasons at the bottom. And now what we can do is we can colour code these so that, for example, a positive opinion is green and the negative opinion is red. And we can do the same thing on the right hand side too. Now, to be honest, we could leave the resource there in terms of the structure, because there's no specific reason why the list of subjects in the second column has to be split into different cells, in which case we don't have a flow problem, because we know that the positive opinions can flow into the subjects and the negatives can flow into the subjects, and then everything flows into because, and then from because everything can flow into a positive opinion or a negative opinion. What we could do is we could scroll down and find our roots, our cell combos, and we could say that we would like to make sure that anything from this table can't be combined with anything from this cell. And we could do the same the other way around, so that none of the negatives here can be combined with the positives here. And this would be enough already to produce some reasonable outputs. So if I save the changes and I scroll down and verify the content here, we'll see that generally speaking the content all works okay, because we've got positive opinions. I love French because it's interesting, because it's fun, because the teacher is nice, etc. Okay. However, what I like to do with this kind of resource, and to give students a bit of a clue with the gender of the school subjects and to help them remember them, is to group them. So this is what we're going to do next. We're going to group those school subjects into different boxes according to gender. So again, we have to split this, and because we've got masculine, le, we've got feminine, la, and we've got those starting with a vowel, L apostrophe, and we've got the plurals, les. So I'm going to divide this column into 4 different cells. So we split, and we're going to split it 2 at the bottom, and we're going to have 2 at the top to try and keep it balanced. Now what I need to do is copy all of the content out. So we take everything apart from le, we'll move it to the next one, and then we take everything apart from la, move it down to the next cell, and then we can take the plural ones and move that down to the bottom cell. Okay, so now we didn't need to do this step, as I explained, but we're doing this because we want our resource to look nicer and to be easier for the students to read, and to help them to memorize which subjects are masculine, which are feminine, etc. So we can color code out these cells so that we have blue for masculine, pink for feminine. We can leave that one white, and we'll maybe make this one say yellow for plural. So there's what it looks like. We've now created a flow problem, of course, because now the way the table is structured currently, only positive likes and dislikes can go into the masculine and feminine ones, and only negative likes and dislikes can go into the L apostrophe and the plural ones. Because remember, the flow in the table moves from left to right, crossing vertical lines, but never able to jump horizontal lines. So what we need to do is we need to add a flow column between the likes and dislikes and the subjects. So we click to add a column, add the column there, and we merge all of the cells to create a vertical column. And now we have our flow column, so that we can start with j'adore and j'aime beaucoup, any positive likes and dislikes, and it can go into the masculine subjects, into the feminine subjects, and it can flow down into these subjects and down to the plurals as well. And the same with the negatives, that can flow into the plurals, into the L apostrophe, into the feminine, and into the masculine subjects too. Because we've added some extra columns and so on, we're going to have to redefine those exclusions that we did before. So I'll just go back into the roots. It's removed them anyway, I believe, because it recognised that they don't exist anymore. And so we're going to add a excluding combination to say that positive likes and dislikes can't be used with negative reasons, and again, negative likes and dislikes can't be used with positive reasons. And OK, and save the changes. And we now have a resource that looks like this. It's easy on the eye. It's easy for students to see which are masculine and which ones are feminine, and it also works because all of the roots are viable, because we've made sure that we're not combining positive likes with negative opinions and vice versa. Just to quickly show you again the roots, you can see that the roots here, every other one has been removed essentially, so that only viable ones are left available. On this occasion, I'm not going to define any vocab chunks, because if you look at the table, these are already quite good as chunks by themselves. So we've got j'adore, j'aime beaucoup, j'aime, etc. And we've got the subjects including the definite articles. So we've got le français, le théâtre, le dessin, and then we've got parce que as a chunk, and then we've got some opinions as chunks. C'est facile, c'est génial, etc. So there's no need in this case to define the vocab chunks, because they're already defined within their table cells. One thing we will need to do, I don't know if people have noticed, is we're going to have to do a little bit of a transformation, because we have parce que, and we also have one of the negative reasons is on a beaucoup de devoirs. And obviously we can't have parce que on a beaucoup de devoirs. There needs to be a change that happens there so that the que becomes QU apostrophe. Now, let's have a quick look at how we do that. So, the transformations pop up. The simplest way to do it, of course, is we could say this. We could say que on becomes con. Okay? And that actually fixes the problem. That's all there is to it. So if we go down now, our vocab chunks haven't changed. There are 31 of them, as defined by the cell contents. And if we look at our sentences, if we can find an example of the parce qu'on, there we go. So I don't like science because we have a lot of homework. Je n'aime pas les sciences parce qu'on a beaucoup de devoirs. So you can see that transformation has worked. So parce que with on becomes parce qu'on. Parce que with le, it doesn't change. Parce que le, okay? And so on. The only downside of doing transformations that combine chunks in that way is that those activities which are sentence activities but based on chunks, so either chunk gaps or building the sentence chunk by chunk, will combine that chunk into one, so that although most sentences will have chunks which are defined like this, I hate English because it's difficult, that particular one with on a beaucoup de devoirs will become, for example, I hate Spanish because we have a lot of homework. So that last chunk, those last two chunks are combined. Now the way that you can avoid combining these chunks is by changing both of them separately by doing a bit of a lookup. So this is a bit more advanced, but it's not actually that complicated. If I was to show you how we can do that. So instead of changing que on to con, what we're going to do is we're going to use a lookup so that we can change both of the chunks at once. So we're going to change both parce que and we're going to change on a beaucoup de devoirs so that they are kept as separate chunks for those activities which are based around building a sentence based on chunks. This can be quite complicated to think about because you have to think it through very carefully and think and do things in stages. So here's an example of the kind of way that we could do this. We could say, for example, that if our sentence contains parce que on, then we're going to change on to con. Okay, so we're saying, if you look at that there, we've got a vertical pipe. Everything to the left of the vertical pipe is a lookup. So it's saying, look for a sentence which contains parce que on, and in that sentence change on to con. Okay, and if you think about it, what we're going to end up with there is a sentence which so far has been changed so that it says parce que con. Okay, and then what we need to do is we need to say, if our sentence contains con, then we're going to change parce que to parce. And those two changes there will do exactly the same thing as the previous transformation that I showed you, but the difference is that because you've changed each chunk separately, rather than combining them into one, it works better for some of the chunk-based sentence activities. And I'll quickly show you. If I say the changes there, the chunks remain the same. On a beaucoup de devoirs hasn't been changed, and so on. Parce que hasn't been changed. And if we scroll down and check our sentences, we'll look at the last one again. Je n'aime pas les sciences parce qu'on a beaucoup de devoirs. Okay, it looks exactly the same as before, but you'll find that it will work better for many of those activities. And all that's required now to finish off this resource is to add the text-to-speech language and to save it. One more thing I can show you quickly, because we've not spent very long on this one, is a text-to-speech transformation. So if we add the language there, French, we might decide that when the text-to-speech is reading this out, we would like it to add a pause before parce que, so that instead of saying j'adore le français parce que c'est facile, it says j'adore le français parce que c'est facile. And the simplest way to do that is to add a transformation to your text-to-speech. So all we need to do is we say space parce que. In fact, just thinking about it, let's not put parce que because we need it to work for our parce qu'on as well. So space parce que, like that, 2 arrows, becomes comma space parce que, like that. Okay. So all we're doing is we're telling the text-to-speech tool that whenever it reads out the sentence, if it finds that it contains space parce space qu, it will add a comma in front of it. And the result of that will be that when it reads out your sentences, it will read it out with a pause before adding the parce que part of the sentence. Save changes, and we're done.